The final thing for today: how do you make time for this fitness habit? Well, let's start at the start. I'm a huge Kill Bill fan. What does that have to do with anything? Well, you know the scene about first things first, wiggle your big toe. Well, that's where it starts. The best diet or the best training plan in the world can't do anything if you don't go to the gym. It's that simple. Or if you don't follow the plan. So, show up. Okay? It's pretty much all there is. But then once you show up, you gotta, actually show up. But let's get there later. So, I'm gonna get you to show up. We're gonna just go with a very, very simple linear progression to get you to show up. Life will get in the way. We are impatient when we start. Like, say, January, I'm going to lose 20 kilos and I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to walk every evening. Sooner or later, that amazing spurt of energy and willpower runs out. It just does. Either life gets in the way or results slow down or a combination of everything, and it just becomes hard. So we end up stopping. We end up going back to zero. So here's the first principle that you need to remember. Never go to step zero. Never go to stopping everything, even a little. And you define little. I've defined little as 15 minutes. You define it as one push-up, which is going to take you 1 second. You define it as whatever you want, but do not go back to zero. Because I am a big believer in process and effort over results. Just so we're clear, I struggle with this constantly. So I constantly keep telling this to myself, because way smarter people than me have said so, and I have felt the benefit of it in a few places, mostly lifting weights. So I know it to be true, especially in places where it hasn't happened. I just know, keep putting in the effort. So it's stuff I keep telling myself. So what does effort mean in terms of fitness? Well, time. Okay? So I have 8 steps. You're going to start by figuring out what step you are at. And that's going to be simple. How many minutes have you spent dedicated to your fitness routine over the last month? Per week. Okay? You can average it out if you want, or just find this number. Some guidelines: don't skip a step. Spend at least 2 weeks per step. More is fine. Less, not so much. Stay patient. And you move on to the next step when you're able to hit 80% compliance at least. You don't have to be 100%, but it's a great bar to set if you are ready for it. But I'll give you 80. So here's the simple effort progression. Okay? Step 1, 15 minutes a day, 3 days a week. That's it. That's 45 total minutes a week. Step 2, 15 minutes per day, 7 days a week. That's 1 hour, 45 minutes over the entire week. Step 3, 30 minutes a day for 3 days, 15 minutes a day for the other 4. We are at 2.5 hours for the total week. Step 4, 30 minutes a day, 7 days of the week. That's 3.5 hours. Step 5, 45 for 3 and 30 for 4. we're at 4 hours and 15 minutes. Step 6, an hour for 3 days and half hour for the other 4 days. Yeah, we're at 5 hours. Step 7, an hour for 3 days and 45 minutes for the other 4. We're at 6 hours. Step 8, an hour a day. That's 7 hours. One more time. 2 weeks per step. You calculate which step you're on. And here is the key. They can be in between steps. Sure. That's up to you. If you know what you're doing, sure, take those in between steps. But this is a very reasonable progression. You should stop at whatever step is right for you. Just to be clear, I am not at step 8. There are a few months of the year when I can dedicate that kind of time. But currently, I'm at about 3 days a week where I have an hour, 2 days a week where I have about 45 minutes, and 2 days a week where I have about 15 minutes. Okay? So you figure out what that total amount of time that works for you is. You can always take a step back when you need to, and then you can take a step forward when you need to. So crazy month at work, 2 steps back. Easy month, or you got everything going on well, 2 steps. But take that time, put in 2 weeks. There are hundreds of permutations and combinations. Okay? So don't get flustered by all of it. Stick to the 8 steps until you know better. But, and I'm going to reiterate this, the biggest takeaway out of this is there is no step 0. Never go back to 0, and I almost never say never, but here, never go to 0. Keep a little bit of effort going. Okay, it matters. It does change things. Especially at that time when you think, oh my gosh, shit is insane right now. I just don't have the time for it. That's especially when you need it. A lot of my students talk about how that 1 hour when they come into class, either virtually or physically, that's when they really get this time to themselves. Otherwise, the rest of the day is a blur. So this 15 minutes, whether it is walking or whatever it is you're doing, find your oasis, find your ocean of calm, and you'll be recharged a little bit at least. It matters. So do not go to step 0. And this effort, once you've created the time for it, then you can figure out more complex things to do there. At the beginning, do whatever is the most accessible thing. Walking, for example. Don't overthink it. Just walk. And if you do this, and let's say you're starting off at step 0, right? By the middle of December, you'll be done with step 2. Come Jan 1st, 30 minutes for 3 days a week and 15 minutes for the 4 other days. By the time Pongal rolls around, you have half hour of activity daily. And by the time Feb rolls around, you would have created time to strength train for an hour 3 days a week and go on a walk the other 4 days for 30 minutes or do yoga or swim. Isn't that crazy? You just need to stay patient for about 3 months. There's no rush to get things done in January. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Effort over results.